Hello, everybody. Welcome to my live Q&A, hosted here every week at 6 p.m. GMT. My name is Jeff Rolka. Thanks for joining us. I've already got some questions, so I am going to dive right in. FYI, feel free to send me stuff in advance, and I will get to it immediately once we get started with the stream. So this person writes, how to cope with singing during cold weather, key tips. We're turning to winter here. I really struggle with this one. May have already suggested it for a video at some stage, so it could be repeating myself. I don't remember the suggestion, but it's such a good question. And the environment that we sing in is obviously a really, really big part of how we need to prepare, how we need to be ready for our performances. FYI, just for context, this person is in the southern hemisphere, hence that's why they're heading into winter, when those of us here in the northern hemisphere are heading towards summertime. Or if you're in England, summer was actually last Wednesday. I hope you saw it. In any case, though, but I digress. So cold weather singing, like so many of these environmental things, it's going to be what you best tolerate. So for me, I tend to be very cold. I get cold very easily. My fingers go numb very easily. My toes go numb very easily. I get cold very, very easily. So I'm like fully equipped if it's going to be cold outside. We're talking like thermal underwear, wool socks, thermal top. I might wear a long sleeve t-shirt on top of that. And then, of course, I'm wearing a wool sweater right now. I might wear a wool sweater. I'll wrap my neck in a scarf. I don't like to wear hats on stage, but if it's that cold, then I'm going to put the hat on too. But I think that the things to remember too is that we can sometimes not feel as thirsty when it's cold out. Your body doesn't necessarily send that signal as much, but that doesn't mean that you don't need fluids. You can still get dehydrated, your voice can still get tired and lack fluids. And so it's very, very important to stay hydrated. And here is where, if it's really that cold outside, keeping your fluids, water, at a nice body temperature, so neither too hot nor too cold, for you to consume while you're singing is really, really critical. For me, I'm thinking of this gig I did at the Canary Wharf in San Francisco, and I was very, very new to the people that were busking in this area. So if you're not familiar with the term busking, it basically means that you take a guitar or whatever you're playing and you go to a place and you play songs and you hope people give you money. And so I was busking at the Canary Wharf, which was like a scheduled thing. And I was, like I said, I was very, very new to busking and very new to the system at Canary Wharf, or Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. And like I got like a Tuesday night from 8 to 10 p.m. in January. And even though in Northern California it doesn't get that cold, I mean, it's still getting to be like, 6 degrees Celsius, 5 degrees Celsius out there. It's super cold. There's a bit of mist coming off of the bay and off the Pacific. Really, really bad conditions. And it was okay because I was really, really prepared for it, really wrapped up, and just stayed warm. So it's about keeping your body, your core body temperature warm, staying comfortable, and staying hydrated. This is a case where if you do take a hot beverage, it could have really bad results because the difference in body temperature, or the difference in temperature between the beverage and just the internal surfaces of your mouth, when you're opening your mouth and getting that in there, could be really dramatic and not very good at all. I mean, really, really hot fluids or really, really cold fluids aren't ideal for vocal production anyway. This is one of those scenarios where it could really, really have dramatic and deleterious effects. FYI, also just by way of reminder too, the chat is open, so feel free to chime in with something in the chat, and I will take your questions as they come. There was another question here too. What are your best warm-up video suggestions for early morning singing? To practice well in the morning, is it best to focus on something like your AAA method? This person happens to be happens to be on the jeffrolka.com website, where there's the AAA method. And FYI, if you're not familiar with that, it's alignment, airflow, and articulation. It's not like AAA. We're awesome. It's alignment, airflow, and articulation, and the method focuses on those three concepts to help you work with your voice. So, example, if I have 30 minutes to an hour to warm up, focus on alignment, airflow, and articulation. I think we talked about this last week, but again, it's great that these questions come up because I think they remain important to us. If you have to sing early in the morning, or you have a performance early in the morning, then we need to plan very carefully ahead for that performance. If I have to sing at 8 a.m., then I'm probably up at 5, and I'm probably doing some type of physical body warm-up, and then I'm also going to eat and I drink coffee, so I'm going to have some coffee and all that kind of stuff prior to starting my vocal warm-up at 6. And I'm probably going to elongate it somewhat. So I'm going to take a little bit more time in my thyroarytenoid dominant range. That's the range below the zona de passaggio. So in my case, that's everything from like an E flat above middle C down to a low C. I'm not going to really push myself into either extreme. I'm not necessarily going to start crossing the secondo passaggio immediately in my warm-up, nor am I going to go down to my lowest possible notes. I'm going to stay in this comfortable thyroarytenoid dominant range. And then as I start to get my body warmed up, because it's not just our voices, right? It's our core body muscles, it's our whole physical being. As I start to wake up and get my body woken up, then I'm going to start expanding outwards from my range. So singing early in the morning is all about planning. We want to make sure we get enough rest. We want to make sure that we're up early enough to adequately warm up and prepare for the performance that we have coming up. So that might mean preparing, 36, 48 hours in advance so that I can get up in time and feel comfortable getting up at that time and get my day started. Heidi, thanks for your latest videos. Tried the mezzo exercises. How did it go? I'm very curious. You're very, very welcome. I'm happy to do it. So thanks for chiming in, and thanks for being here. I think you've been to every one of the Q&As, if I'm not mistaken, and I really, really appreciate you popping in and getting involved with the chat and everything that's going on. Yeah, the mezzo, somebody left a comment somewhere asking for a mezzo range warm-ups, and I started thinking about it and went and reviewed some of my textbooks and things like that, and thought, you know what, that's a totally legit request, and so now they're part of the warm-up regimen. When I do the warm-up exercises for the different vocal ranges, I'm going to keep on doing the mezzo exercises as well. I have to do a mezzo passaggio video really, really soon here in the, probably not this coming week, but in the next week. I'm getting ready to do a couple more beginner videos this coming week, and I've got a couple quick tips that are coming out this coming Friday and then the following Friday as well. But the warm-ups will be in addition to that. Super interesting material, Jeff. It's really helping me to learn and discover my voice being a beginner. Thank you very much. You are very, very welcome. Yuri. Thanks for watching, man. Thanks for coming tonight. And please stay in touch. Yes, Heidi, the last exercise was tricky, the messo di voce exercise. Kind of deceptively tricky because I was really, I have to admit, I was a bit nervous about putting that out there. But I thought, well, let's do it. And it is a valuable exercise. It's somewhat of a Jedi mind trick kind of a thing, because you really have to listen so carefully. It's not just about singing a pitch. It's about how we do it. Is the tone consistent? Is the intonation consistent? Am I making a clean, organic crescendo? Am I making a clean, organic diminuendo? and this is all just still in a comfortable range. As we practice with it more and more and more and expand outwards from that comfort zone, it's an incredibly challenging exercise. I don't know if the person who requested that knows this or not, but that exercise was one of the key components of Pavarotti's like vocal training when he was young, and also as he carried on through his career, was the notion of that single note with a lot of focus and practicing those crescendos and diminuendos. One vocal teacher of mine many years ago actually told me that the reason why Pavarotti held his hand out like that was that it was his reminder of the messo di voce exercises. But that's completely unverified. So if I'm wrong about that, full disclosure, that was what I was told by another teacher, and I am perhaps perpetuating falsehoods, and I hope not, but I kind of like to believe it anyways. Hello, Jeff from Tacoma, Washington. Susan, yes, thank you for your email. We had our summer yesterday. I can dig it. I sing alto in my church choir. I would like to have a stronger, fuller voice. My voice is a little weak. Any exercises that would help me? Very good question. Can you be more specific? I'm a beginner. Okay, Susan. So how much of a beginner? How long have you been studying? How long have you been in the choir? How much of the channel have you explored here, or how much of other channels have you explored too? Like, how long have you been going at this for, and what's been happening? Give us a little bit more information in the chat if you don't mind. Hi there. Here is Gianluca from Italy, and I'm following your program. Hit the right note. Yes, you're very welcome. Thank you so very much. And I was wondering if the breathing you teach is suitable also in opera singing. Yes, it's taken from opera singing. That's the Appoggio breath management system, or Appoggio breathing, is taught in bel canto. So yeah, it's absolutely it's part of opera technique, but it's absolutely applicable. If you ask me, it's just I try not to label things as right and wrong, but the reason why I'm so adamant about Appoggio is because I sang for such a long time where I was doing the whole, and people had told me to stick out my stomach and then pull it back in and stick it out and pull it back in. And it just wasn't working. My voice did not respond the way I thought it could, nor as I could hear other people doing who were, supposed to be similar vocal types to me. And so I started doing some reading and some studying, and I came across Richard Miller, and you'll hear me reference him throughout the channel. And I started reading the book, and I started reading about the breathing, and it absolutely went against everything that I had been taught up to that point. And that's when I sought out a teacher and started studying it, and it took me a little while, but eventually I started getting into the Appoggio breath management system, and it changed absolutely everything. The reliability and the overall control I started to be able to have with my voice, and it's only gotten better and better and better and better as I've continued to practice. I'm now reminded of the quote I shared on Twitter, which was sent to me from another person who had sent an email to me, and it was Pablo Casals, who was a very, very famous cellist. And they asked him, because he lived to quite a ripe old age, at the age of 90, why do you still practice? And he said, I think I'm making progress. And I thought, that's awesome. That's like such a beautiful summary of where we as artists, I feel like we as artists need to reside in this constant conceptualization of how much more we can still do, and then pursuing it both technically and artistically. And the technique, in my opinion, fuels the artistry. So by learning options, by learning control, by learning how to do a vocal fry and how not to do a vocal fry, it enables us to have more and more options. But I'm really digressing here off that question, Gianluca. So yes, in a nutshell, yes, it's appropriate for opera singing. It was taken from opera singing. Susan, still, let's see. Okay, so you've got some more stuff. I'm going to get to that in a second. Heidi, increasing the volume worked, decreasing it did not yet. Very cool. Interesting. The check-in, if you've seen the video that I did a little while back, which is, I think it's got the lean in the title, where I've got like pictures of me leaning up against a wall, and the idea is that it forces you to engage the core body muscles. Try it like that and see if it works. Excuse me for just a second. Try it like that and see if it works. We unfortunately develop a lot of habits. Before we start becoming aware of how our voices work, we can develop these habits, and then we have to discover them consciously as we practice our vocalizations and learn more about the technique of singing. There's two possible habits that can be really, really challenging for us. When we're singing down a descending phrase, the tendency is to release too much engagement and allow that expansion to collapse. Additionally, if we're singing softer, there's a potential there for the support systems and expansion to collapse. In the lean orientation, you won't be able to release those core muscles that help to retain your expansion and retain your engagement. See if that helps on the diminuendo. Gianluca, yep, that exercise is tricky but super useful. I tried the tenor too, and I had your same problem, Heidi. Yeah, so Gianluca, try that. If you've not seen the lean video, check that out. Okay, Susan, I've been in the choir 20 years. Congratulations. That is a long time to be in a choir. I've only recently discovered your videos within the past couple of months. My voice projection is getting better, but I need a lot of work. I think a lot of my problem is lack of confidence. Okay. Confidence, for me, okay, so confidence, I feel, is a very personal issue. There are confidence things that, affect us psychologically, and then there are those that manifest themselves physically as well. So my confidence issues over the years have largely revolved around not feeling like I belong on stage or not feeling like I belong performing for various reasons. And my initial way of dealing with that was ridiculous amounts of practice and preparation. Like, I mean, I would not. It's at one point I got to practicing 10 hours plus a day in order to prepare for performances, and that's too much. That's so far into the law of diminishing returns at that point. It's not effective, and it's ultimately too fatiguing. I mean, granted, when I got to the performances, it all went fine, but it never really address the issue. And when I started to address the issue directly, and then I started to get different kinds of confidence and different kinds of performance anxiety manifestations, but they were much more manageable. For us as vocalists, the main thing that we have to be conscious of, the main problem that we get into when we have confidence issues, is that we tend to back away from the singing experience. And we do that by releasing too much engagement in the core muscles. That allows the diaphragm to raise up as the lungs empty, and then we lose engagement, we lose support, we lose the suppleness of our voices, and then things really start to go bad. And that's when we start to squeeze or push in order to sing the notes that we need to sing for the performance. So, though you've been singing for such a long time in the choir, if you've just discovered the videos on the channel, the idea with the videos is to incorporate the kind of practices that will generate incredibly consistent performance results for you out of habit once you've practiced them and committed them to habit. So whatever habits you've gotten over the years while singing, those are kind of a separate issue. You may have to work your way around some of those. If you're new to the Apagio breath management system and the notion of expansion laterally through the rib cage is foreign, then some exploration, experimentation, and a little bit of time is going to be required for that to be committed to habit. But as those types of practices get committed to habit, you will get greater and greater consistency with your voice. It will get easier and easier to sing, and from there, you get more reliability of the vocal mechanism, of the performance capabilities, and that can, hopefully it will make you feel better already. Like, hopefully you'll be generating some confidence by the reliability of your voice, but it will also free you up to be in your person without sounding too Californian, to kind of be present, to be mindful of the experience, and to answer the questions that may be cropping up. I don't know what your questions are when you have those confidence issues. Mine typically manifests, they still manifest really the same way. It's just a different dialogue, whom I call the saboteur. That's my way of personifying this anti-performer, the saboteur. And so I can address that concept directly because I know that everything else is very reliably working for me. But projection, I'm really taking the long turn on these questions tonight. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Projection is about resonance. So there is a video in the warm-ups. I think it's in the warm-ups, and it might also be in the technical exercises playlist. But if you search for it on the channel, it's literally called Resonance. And that will not only help you practice it, but it will also give you a very good idea of what it is that we're working on here. We want the vowels to resonate similarly. They all have their differences. They all habitually resonate in one area of the oral cavity or another. But we reconcile those differences. They resonate similarly. We get more linear lines. We get more consistent vowel to vowel to vowel transitions. That gives us more consistent results, so on and so forth, right? You can see where that's going. The voice is also a nonlinear occurrence, and what that means is that if we push on it, we will get louder to a certain extent by pushing on our voices, but then it becomes a reverse thing where we're actually going to be dampening it down by holding the tissues so tightly. So our voices get those big, resonant, rich tones by being loose in the oral cavity, having the vocal folds be relaxed and supple, and having airflow appropriate to the range that we are in. So if you're new to the channel and you're new to vocal study, though you've been singing for such a long time, check into some of the videos that are in the beginner playlist. Again, not that you're a beginner, but they deal with smaller snippets of vowel sounds, and they deal with them at a slower tempo and a more comfortable range. They're not going to go into the extremities of range. Once you've got like groups of vowels, E and A and ah and O and oo, when they're all starting to resonate similarly, then maybe start moving into the warm-ups that are in the general warm-up playlist. Again, avoiding the full range ones because you want to stay in comfortable ranges here. As the resonance develops and as it gets more and more consistent, then you can start expanding outwards. Thank you so much for your videos. I'm tenor and they're so helpful with my technique. You're very welcome. Thank you. Excellent, Heidi. Do try that video. I noticed how support just collapsed. Didn't know how to fix it. Thanks. My pleasure. My pleasure. It's just those like habits just kind of happen. It's like the descending phrase or singing softer. we just fall into them over time, and then we don't notice it. We have to notice it and then work around it. Saludos from Costa Rica. Hello. Hello from England. Susan, I thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I know it's taking a lot of time, but I so appreciate it. I will start practicing every day. That's a good point as well that I didn't even think of. And you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. I mean, I'm of the opinion that these answers really, really help all of us. So it helps me as an instructor, and it helps all of us as vocalists. And it helps me as a vocalist, quite frankly, too, because it reminds me of these things as well. But yes, practicing every day is also very crucial. Or, as much as is sustainable. So if you can do it 5 days a week, awesome. Great. If you can do 10 minutes a day, but 6 or 7 days a week, awesome. It's great. But frequency is crucial to us. Hello. I'm a big fan. Thank you for your help. I am baritone and can push my chest voice through tenor range and all the way to the top of my falsetto range. Is this bad? I read it was. Is it bad? Then that makes me ask the question of if you're losing your voice. If you're losing your voice or you're having pain, yes, stop. That's a simple answer. If it hurts, stop. My bigger concern for you, though, is that if that is how you are always singing, then you are limiting the options that you have with the use of your voice. If that doesn't matter, then it's a non-issue. If that's not important and you are not losing your voice and you're not in pain, then that's fine. That's fine. If you are losing your voice, if you need more options, then this particular method that you've been singing with, the way that you've been singing, is going to make it rather challenging to learn where your secondo passaggio is. That's the point where your voice wants to flip over into your mix range, and the zona di passaggio is the mix range, and then ultimately into the head voice, which is I refer to as cricothyroid dominant singing, and then ultimately falsetto. And so that's where we get into problems, because if you've been pushing and pushing and pushing for such a long time, learning the technique to make a smooth transition into cricothyroid dominant singing, also called head voice, can be really, really challenging. So that's that. It sort of kind of questions, and also, okay, I see you chimed in a little bit later on. I'm going to get to that in a second. Heidi, yes, regular practice is absolutely crucial. Helped a lot, yes. How do I make my mix sound stronger? Have good vowel resonance that carries through into the zona di passaggio, and make sure that you are approaching it suitably light. So, for example, so if I'm here and I'm going to get, I'm right at, this is A major. My break is right in the middle. It started at the top of A major, just beyond the high note in A. And then I kind of ascended through there, and I'm crossing over my secondo passaggio in all those exercises. Hopefully it sounds pretty seamless. Hopefully it sounds fairly much like I'm just singing through all this. If I were to approach that with too much weight on the thyroarytenoid dominant aspect of my voice, you can hear it breaking up already. As I get near the zona di passaggio, the weight of the vocal fold gets to be too heavy to support the higher pitches, and it starts to squeeze down, and I'm starting to lose it. So Paradoxically, if you want a strong mix, you got to be lighter in the zona de passaggio approaching it. Now, that doesn't mean airy. That just means I am not going to be heavy here. So I've got really good engagement, really, really good expansion. Is it bad for your voice? This is an extension of the person who's a baritone pushing their chest voice up. I'm not losing it or hurting it. Well, now you've got it as a question there. Every voice is different. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, if it's Ga Yates or Ya Yates. Forgive me if I've mispronounced that. Is it bad for your voice? I'm not losing it or hurting it, ? That's my question for you. If you're losing your voice, then yes, obviously it's bad. If it's hurting you, yes, it's bad. Would I recommend that you push your voice that high? No, I wouldn't recommend that you do that. But I don't know your voice. I've never heard you sing. And if you are not hurting yourself, if you're not enduring physical pain, then it might be okay for you. It really it becomes a very personal thing. I wouldn't recommend it, but and again, it's really crippling your transition technique if you're getting accustomed to that. Jean-Luc, one more question. I have difficulties in singing E and A. Yes, in high range. I mean, on the passaggio and above. Is there something I can do? Because I have this problem since, like always. Totally normal. There's an old teacher of mine once said there are no pure vowels over the break. There are no pure vowels when you enter the zona de passaggio, nor when you are above it. So, if you are in the range of the zona de passaggio, and I can exaggerate this a little. I'll show you here, and then I'll ascend a little bit. So, in common nomenclature, it's referred to as blending. So we're set to blend our vowels, and E and A are going to, pardon me, they're going to blend towards the schwa vowel, towards A and So if I show you here, you can hear it widen as I ascend. It's not a huge amount. Narrow to a little wider to a little narrower. And we keep on doing that. We're going to blend towards that more open schwa vowel and then let it come back towards the narrow vowel as we descend. When you're above the zona de passaggio, we're really blended a lot towards A when we have A. You may hear it more with the A vowel, actually. You can hear it, it sounds more like eh. And then as we get higher and higher, that vowel is going to keep on expanding while we keep on lifting to get adequate airflow over the vocal fold. Can you explain the vocal types and the range they should sit in? I have trouble deciding what voice to use. I'm not sure I understand that question. I mean, I'm not sure if you're referring to the ranges of an individual's voice. So, like in a tenor range voice or a baritone range voice, we have thyroarytenoid dominant singing, cricothyroid dominant singing, and then falsetto. Or if you mean like soprano, mezzo-soprano, alto, tenor, baritone. Because of the way that you're stating that question, I think what you're actually referring to are the different registers of a given individual's voice. And I would say again, there's few hard and fast rules about this, especially when you're in the upper register. when you're here, for me, when I'm here, and this is low C, so I'm low C to G, E, thyroarytenoid dominant. Like I'm not really capable of pulling my cricothyroid muscles down low enough to get those pitches. Now, as I get more towards middle C, I get more choices. So here, that's still all thyroarytenoid dominant. But on the D natural, I'm close enough, and I'm close enough to the zona de passaggio, and I'm close enough to my secondo passaggio that I can use a cricothyroid dominant approach and have that countertenor kind of sound. But I quickly lose it. My voice is pitched higher, and so that's kind of that's the bottom end of what I can really do with a cricothyroid dominant approach. A little higher up, it gets easier. I still get to thyroarytenoid dominant by the bottom of B flat major, so that's F, E flat, D, C, and B flat. But I can blend that cricothyroid dominant position, so it's really, really quite light and sort of light and fluffy and a little bit airy, even if I want. By applying more airflow, I still make the transition, but I get a bit more resonance, and so it sounds fuller. Still doing the transition there, but the additional airflow and the additional resonance makes it fuller. I get more flexibility. Above that point, I'm cricothyroid dominant, so I'm using my upper register. If I know I'm going to sing a passage and then go right back up to it, I may sing that like an E flat or something down and keep it cricothyroid dominant. But I might not too. It really depends on how you want the line to sound. If you want it to narrow more, then making the transition smoothly is probably going to give you a more satisfactory result. Again, I'm above the secondo passaggio, my cricothyroid dominant voice. I'm transitioning to my thyroarytenoid dominant voice and going back up. This is why I was concerned about your pushing your chest voice so high, because if you don't learn to do that transition, then you don't have the choice. And I think that I'm a firm believer in having choices. I want options in my singing, in the things that I sing, and I want to enable you guys, and I use the word guy, I should say you folks, but I want all of us to have those options. Gotcha on the question marks. I have to work a lot on how to sing in high range videos. Yeah, especially there's the part 1 will help you if you're still learning to make that transition through the secondo passaggio. Danielle, my middle voice is weak. How can I improve it? I assume you mean the zona de passaggio. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Paradoxically, this is about being lighter below it. So when you're here, heading towards the middle range, the zona de passaggio, we have to stay light. If I get too heavy down here, I am going to very quickly run out of room. I'm going to be too heavy as I get into the zona de passaggio. So I'm light and narrow below the zona de passaggio. I'm opening up and increasing airflow as I ascend to open the voice, keep air moving, keep the vocal fold resonating. Resonance, it's about resonance. I'm trying to sing Nusendoma. How do I reach those high notes with those? Is it good practice to be able to? I don't know what the highest note is in that piece. So what do you have to sing up to? And what range are you? This is great warm up. Guy Yates, that's answered my question. Thanks. It's the blending of the registers. Yes, and that's what so much of the technique on my channel is about learning to be able to make seamless transitions from a thyroarytenoid dominant voice, which is the chest voice, right, into the head voice, which I refer to as cricothyroid dominant voice, because those are the muscles that we're using. And then above that, we get to falsetto. Shalnuka, thank you so much. I will try to think about it and to practice in that direction. Awesome. Keep us posted. So, come on back and chime in here, or leave a comment or whatever. I'm reasonably available, so I hope to hear from you again in the near future. I've actually caught up with the comments in the chat, although I did ask Chris to clarify a few things. So once that gets up, we'll carry on with that. If there are any questions, please chime in. In the meantime, had a few questions about frogs in throats, about feeling like you got a bit of phlegm stuck in the throat. And I, for one, have certainly dealt with this on and off for different periods of my teaching and singing career. Certainly, as always, the best thing to help clear that out is room temperature water. It thins the mucus around the vocal fold and helps to move it off. If it's really, really annoying, plan ahead and have adequate time to warm up. If you have enough time to warm up, you can generally kind of knock loose a lot of that. You can knock loose a lot of that phlegm that's on the vocal fold and in the surrounding area, and move that away from there. But if it's really persisting with you, and especially if there's any kind of pain or anything like that involved with it, an ENT, go and see a doctor. Because we all deal with phlegm to a certain degree, but it's nice to know that there's nothing sinister hanging out down there. We don't want that. So, if you can, to see a doctor, to see an ENT, that would be awesome too. But if it's just a frog in your throat and you've already seen somebody and you know it's okay, or you're pretty sure it's okay, room temperature water, adequate warm-up, adequate engagement, so that you know that you are really, really keeping the airflow moving over the vocal fold and not gripping at all here. Now, one caveat is that when I first began to learn how to make the successful transition through the zona de passaggio, so going from thyroarytenoid dominant singing to cricothyroid dominant singing, I felt like for a little while, like a little bit of muscle fatigue around the sides of my neck. I haven't felt that for a long, long time. But if it truly is a frog in your throat, that's something different. Lots of water, adequate warm-up. And I'm going to address that question on the channel as well, because that came up in a comment. So Chris, in the meantime, has gotten back to us. You're a bass. But I really want to reach the high notes. That's cool, man. There is nothing in the world. It's just because we have low voices does not preclude us from singing high. That just means that you can sing low differently than I can sing low. And in fact, you have notes that I probably will never reach because I cannot get down there. But with adequate practice and successful transitions through the zona de passaggio, it's possible for you to sing really, really into the upper register. You may have to change the way you think about high notes and the way that you approach them. A lot of airflow, a lot of narrowing of the vowels. So sticking into your comfortable range, if it's down here, really focusing those vowels so that they are light but resonant. We want them to be balanced, right? If I had too much vocal fold engagement here in my, I'm going to show you here, 'cause it's a little bit more realistic for me. If I had too much thyroarytenoid muscle control, I'm pushing too hard, right? That's what pushing is gripping here. It's very, very noticeable, right? Or contrarily, if I tried to be too open in this range of my voice. So in other words, I'm depressing the larynx physically. I'm using my tongue group muscles to press down my larynx to sort of fabricate a sound. The voice does not work so well that way. We have to arrive at the color and the character of our voice with good airflow and balanced approach to it. So and then from there we can begin to build outwards. As you get into the zona de passaggio for you, then you're going to start talking about vowel blending and things like that. There we go. Okay, I can see now. I'm going to get to those questions in a second. Heidi, last exercise in your latest video made me think about how to make a song come alive. Oh, I just lost that. How do good singers do that? That's an excellent question. That quickly starts to get philosophical. For me, if I'm going to perform a song or I'm going to record a song, this won't make this. I don't know if this will make sense or not, but I'm going to say it anyways. I have to work it until I come out the other side. So, for me, I'm fairly technical natured. You know, I really enjoy practicing scales. I really enjoy working on music theory and things like that. Like I find it incredibly stimulating. And so when I'm getting ready to do a piece of music, I want to pull it apart in every conceivable way. I want to make it all into little exercises in things that I can work on to better understand what it is I have to do. And then I slowly put it all back together. Anyone who's ever had a private lesson with me will attest to this, that I find that I understand things best when I take it all apart and look at the little bits and pieces of it, and then I start to reassemble it. And when I reassemble it, it tends to look a little different than it did when I first took it out, when I first began to disassemble it. And then I feel like there's a sort of marinating time that occurs as well, where we're finding our own voice. We're finding our own, why we're singing the song. You know, if it's a song that I wrote, I've got a pretty good reason for why I wrote the song. But I still have to discover myself as a performer in it. So that means, and I'm kind of backtracking here into the whole taking it apart thing, I might experiment with keys. I might have to write out the entire chart in order to, and this is not to say that everyone has to do this. This is what I do, okay? So maybe you're different. I write it all out. I have charts for all of my contemporary songs. I didn't used to do this. It's a process that I discovered through writing, recording, and performing songs. So I'll write it all out. I'll look at it. I'll experiment. I might try putting a different chord here or a different chord there or changing the melody here. In the early, the beginning stages of developing the song, I might find that what I thought was going to be the chord progression for the chorus actually becomes the outro. That happened on the song Sweet Angel, which was a song off of a record of mine called The Atlantean. The outro for that was the song. And then as I started to work on it more and more and more, that became the outro. So how do things come alive? That's how it comes alive for me. I would think that everyone's process would be different, and I would encourage people, because there's bunches of people here right now. What's your process? Chime in the chat if you wish. Obviously, it's not compulsory, but That's my process for trying to bring life to something. And I feel like that's true no matter what I'm singing. By the time I'm ready to sing a song that I wrote, it's basically a cover. I don't feel like I have any more ownership of it than any cover song. I need to remake it my own. I don't assume that the process I went through to write it necessarily informs me entirely on how it is to perform it. So yeah. Chris, forgive me. I mean, just in general, I have been singing opera for 2 years. I am good at being a bass, but have hard times reaching those high notes. However, I always crack. And then, Chris, you chimed in with some other stuff because I addressed a bit of that. You get it? Okay. Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and say that's resonating with you. That's cool. Excellent. Samuel, thank you so much, Jeff, for your lessons. You are very, very welcome, Samuel. Thank you for showing up tonight, and thank you for chiming in. Or I'm not sure where you are. It might be morning for you, or it might be evening, or something like that. But thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it, and you are very welcome. I'm very great, Chris. That is so very helpful. I'm very grateful to hear that. Sorry for the many comments. Comments are awesome, man. You never apologize for comments. All you are doing is inconveniencing electrons. It is all good. Thank you. You're very kind. I do my best to be a good vocal coach. I'll take those singing warm-ups. Thank you for your time and patience. My pleasure, sir. My pleasure. Heidi, makes total sense to me. Thanks. Some songs I connect to more easily than others. Absolutely. And you know what? And that's a really, really great point, Heidi. I was working on, this was years and years and years ago, and I was working on singing Bulletproof, which is an old Radiohead song. And I was just literally beating my head. Well, I wasn't literally beating my head up against the wall. I wasn't actually doing that. But metaphorically speaking, I was beating my head up against the wall. And just switched gears and started working on some Billy Joel tunes for fun. And everything got all of a sudden a lot easier, and it was fun. And later on, I came back to Bulletproof and worked on it again, and it was much different the next time around. Sometimes we just have to take a pass on things, let it cool off for a little while, and circle back around. There's no... I don't ever anticipate not singing. I think I'm always going to be singing, so I know that if I don't tackle it this time around, I'll get it again. If there's a deadline for something and I've really got to make it happen, well, then we figure it out and I make it happen. That's part of what it is to be a professional musician, is that we figure it out. And while another great lesson that I had with Raz Kennedy many, many years ago, and Raz Kennedy is a very noteworthy, amazing gentleman. Lovely, the nicest man you will ever, well, in my opinion, he's just a lovely, lovely individual, and teaches in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I went in for a lesson one time, and I just said, I'm really not I'm not connecting. I'm not connecting with my audience. And his response was so interesting. It was utterly unexpected from what I thought he was going to say. I thought it might be things like, make some eye contact, you've got to invest, you've got to find your source of passion. I was expecting any of those things. And what he actually said was, well, I think when people are not feeling connected to their audience or to the music, they've got to amp up their rhythm. You've got to really, really invest and amp up and intensify your rhythm, because you can watch a person on stage and think, man, they are absolutely feeling the music. They are so feeling the music, but you don't know what they're thinking. You have no idea. He could be thinking about how he really wants a sandwich after the gig. And it's true. I mean, my old, teacher from university, wisely said people watch with their eyes. Both true. I think Raz's comment was both philosophical and very practical. I think Mr. Sinta's comment way back in the day was very, very philosophical and very instructive long term. In terms of Raz, rhythm is crucial. Rhythm is crucial, particularly in like contemporary pop format songs, or if it's highly ornamented, like a Whitney Houston tune, or anything that has a lot of like short note values, small note values, 16th notes, and highly syncopated rhythms where it's off the beat. Amping up the intensity of your rhythm will absolutely energize the song. And I feel like when you have to focus that intently on it, it reinvests us intellectually in the song as well and makes it that much more interesting. Because I find that I get incredibly focused when I'm that on the rhythm. And it makes it much more exciting, I think, for the audience as well. With Mr. Sinta's comment, we have to be able to focus our vowels. Practically speaking, as a vocalist, we have to be able to focus the vowels without this outer stuff getting in the way. So if I sing my E vowel like this, E, I'm pulling all this back and I'm distorting the shape of the vowel. The vowel has to focus back here. E. And so if I'm singing a happy song, E, I can still focus that vowel, and that was probably a fairly shocking looking grimace, right? But E, I can still smile and sing that E vowel. If it's a heavy duty song, E, I can make it look sad. I am, of course, exaggerating here with my facial expressions. But thinking about Melissa Cross, when she did her interview with David Letterman some years ago, she breaks it down into the face. You vocalize, you learn the vocalizations, E, and then you add the face. E, right? You get the face to communicate that, because people watch with their eyes. So that's something else too. Mr. White, hello. You said hello, and then things have kind of scrolled on here. Let me see here. What we got? Reach this. What did I miss? I was cleaning my brother's room, and I got a reminder to watch the live thing. Hey, man, I'm sorry that you got in here late. These things are all archived entirely on YouTube, so you can go back and check it out. But lot of lovely, cool questions. Covered some performance anxiety stuff, covered some confidence stuff, talked a lot about vowel formation, talked a lot about passaggio. At some point, I believe I discussed the differences between thyroarytenoid, cricothyroid, and falsetto, so the different ranges of an individual's voice, right? Chest voice being thyroarytenoid, head voice being cricothyroid, upper register like above the third, passaggio, falsetto. Have a look back through the feed and then maybe chime back in next week, because I do these every week. When do you usually have live videos? I really want to watch and learn. Chris, every week, 6 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So this thing started at 6 p.m. here in England. Don't know what time zone you're in, but that's when they start, 6 p.m. Mr. White. Hey, Jeff, love your contents. Thank you very much. Just want to ask you, is it correct that I can sing high without breathing? Oops. Let's see here. Where is it? High without breathing. Using breath, I breathe and hold. I don't know if I understand entirely what you mean by that. If what you mean is that when you're going for a high note, you don't take a breath immediately before the note, that's good. General rule of thumb is if you're singing an ascending phrase, or like if you have a skip, so I'm going like from here to here, we don't want to put a breath in between the two. pardon me. I wasn't meaning to do that. So there you go. Yeah, if you've got a big skip, you want to connect the two. But I'm not sure what you mean by that question. Could you elaborate? Oh, okay. I'll get to that in a second. I see that you have elaborated. Jeff, can you comment on singing with different characters in songs like a voice actor would on an animation show? I think you have to be careful about that. Um, I think that you want to make sure that you are in a reasonably comfortable character. Um, but I must admit, I have not had a ton of experience with this. When I think about animated movies, like such as The Incredibles or something like that, or The Simpsons, the those characters, I mean, they are adopting affectations to be in character, but it's frequently more of an accent than it is a range. And I am not someone who deals terribly with elocution or learning different accents. So that's probably a question for someone else, I'm afraid. I'm sorry about that. Mr. White, the problem is when I'm training using your exercises, I start with chest voice and I can never sing as high, unlike the one when I use a holded breath. But using a holded breath does post a lot of limitations to my voice. I'm really sorry. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by holding your breath. When I'm training using your exercises, I start with chest voice, never sing as high, unlike the one when I use a holded breath. I mean, if you're talking about using suspension, that's great. Like that's the correct technique. That's apagio breath management. It can feel like a held breath. But what it is this suspension where we're keeping the diaphragm imposed downwards. And so it does feel like you're holding your breath, but there is motion of airflow over the vocal fold. Heidi, thanks about the rhythm part, especially true for Turkish music. Very cool. Happy to help. I also respond on your comment of how I should practice and how many minutes, hours you should spend. Oh, right. Yes, I know. I got a little bit behind on the comments this week, and I apologize for that. There is no catch-all answer for that. It boils down to what is sustainable for you. So if you can commit to practicing 10 minutes a day of vocalizations, in addition to whatever else you have to sing. So, like, let's say you've got a half an hour to sing, and you know that's your half hour to sing, and you can do 10 minutes of vocalizations before doing 20 minutes of singing songs. That's really, really crucial. I would keep that at all costs. If you have more time, then maybe a little bit more vocalization, but you don't overdo it because you're gonna end up incorporating some of those vocalizations in your song work. All right, these things translate to help you work on the songs. And also how many days per week you're going to sing. It's better to practice a shorter period every day or 5 days a week than it is to practice an hour on the weekend or an hour or 2 hours on your day off. That's not to say that you shouldn't sing for an hour or 2 hours on your day off, but you still need to practice every day or at least 5-6 days a week. I think you can still make progress. I mean, I have clients that their only time that they practice is when they're with me in a lesson. However, I think that you will probably find that you will progress more smoothly and consistently with your regular practice, and obviously more quickly. It will go faster for you. I'm going to take the last question that I see there from Finland, and then I'm going to bid you a fond farewell this evening. But let me see what I've got before that. You're very welcome. Okay, so Finland. Hello from Finland. Hello from England. We're just a little bit south. What is this cuperto technique? Singing low volume. Singing low volume, or how to practice that? Okay, so I don't know what that technique is. I haven't heard of the cuperto technique. Singing, if it involves singing low volume, that is perhaps the hardest thing that we have to do. As a vocalist, it's pretty comfortable for us to be in the middle range of our voices, singing at mezzo piano, mezzo forte, like the mezzos, right? Like neither too loud nor too soft. That's I could do that the first thing in the morning. But if I have to maintain that kind of timbre, but do it softly, I automatically feel the lift and expansion engaging more fully here. And this got addressed earlier. Heidi very kindly offered up a question about this. The latest warm-up videos that I just did had this messo di voce exercise at the end of it. And it involves singing from a reasonably soft volume, doing a bit of a crescendo, and then making a diminuendo. And her voice was not responding well to the diminuendo. And that's where this engagement starts to really, really become, I mean, it's always crucial, but it turns critical rather quickly, and things can fall apart rather fast if you're not retaining and perhaps even increasing your suspension as you start your diminuendo. And so if that's what that technique is about, it is almost certainly about learning to retain a high volume of engagement and suspension in order to support the voice. That in turn frees the vocal fold to be loose. I just got to take these other questions. I'm just that kind of person. So let's see here. What can you tell us at the vocal placement when singing, please? The placement of the voice is a mystery to me. Samuel, it's about balance. We achieve balance with placement when we have adequate airflow, which is appropriate to the range that we are in, and we are allowing the voice to do what it will naturally do. So if I'm here, those short notes help me find a good balance, right? And then it comes off placed well. As you get more aware of the soft tissue response in the voice, you may find that you want it to be a little bit further back. That can be a bit more muted or soft sounding. If I'm singing with a microphone or I'm singing in theater, then I'm going to have a little bit more point. I'm going to bring more sinus resonance into it. And that's going to make my voice project more fully. So the first issue with placement is finding the neutral zone. Yeah, I hope all the Star Trek was cool with the announcements. You have to find that neutral position of the voice so that we have a good balanced tone. From there, we can explore both front and rear resonance and utilize what is appropriate to the genre that we are singing in. Susan Ray, thank you for your videos and office hours. You learned a great deal. Wonderful. You're welcome. Thank you. My art teacher's been saying when I am trying to incorporate my life drawing. Thank you. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Awesome. Susan, thank you very much.